Are younger Singaporeans not hungry, or are they just tired? Nowadays, there's a lot of debate online about Gen Zs not being hungry. The more I think about it, the more I think there's something missing from the discussion. And so today, that's what I want to talk about. As someone who's in my late 30s, I understand both sides of the discussion, right? I understand why the older generation feels like hunger is very important. And it is, right? For them, hunger means survival. It means being able to feed their family, means being able to put food on the table. That's why, our ancestors, they actually come to Singapore. They 下南洋 because they're looking for better life, and they feel that, hunger can really help them put food on the table. If they work hard, their younger generations, their children, their grandchildren would be able to have social mobility and to lead a better life. I mean, if I think about my grandparents, right, they literally have to feed the whole kampong. It's like, they have 7 kids, all growing up and needing food, and, it's a very different time. And now, if you think about it, a lot of the foreign talents in Singapore are literally kind of doing the same thing. They are actually, they actually uproot from their home country and move to Singapore in search of better opportunities, better life. So that's what our ancestors did, and that's what foreign talents in Singapore are now doing. And for them, of course, they are hungry. They literally, get out of the comfort or the familiarity of their home country to go into a very foreign land to seek new opportunities, to seek job opportunities. And I mean, the only reason they're in Singapore is because they are there to work, right? So they stay near. If I think about my ex-colleagues who are foreigners, they stay near the office. Their whole life revolves around work most of the time. So of course they are hungry. Some of them have to send money back home, feed their whole kampong as well. So that is just the reality, right? And I think, for us, Singaporeans, our ancestors, our, forefathers, they came to Singapore with that kind of mindset, with that kind of hunger. And that actually built modern day Singapore. Part of our prosperity now is because of that hunger. So I can totally understand the whole mentality of, okay, we need to be hungry. But then on the flip side, I can also see why a lot of the younger Singaporeans actually see a very different side of the stories, right? When I first started my work as an ABM, assistant brand manager in a MNC, I was in P&G, I saw a lot of, layoffs in my first few years, even, right? It is nothing new. Layoff is very common. It is just a matter of satisfying Wall Street and all of that, right? So we grow up in an environment that is quite different than what is in the past. And then also we are at a time where actually uni grads is very common. Everyone applying for a job is a uni grad. You send in a resume. I think there are a lot of people who send in a lot of resumes and don't even get an interview, right? Because it's hard to stand out, right? Like, it is, everybody is a uni grad, and then I see a lot of the Gen Zs, they go for multiple internships. Back in my time, when I was in school, I only did one internship. That was actually not very much necessary. I think I kind of enjoyed my internship. I took it as a vacation. I went to Beijing for internship. But nowadays I see a lot of the Gen Zs, they have to go for multiple internship. I see some of the interns in the companies I work for, they go for so many internships, and that's kind of important and necessary for survival and for them to get the experience before they even graduate. So, it is not easy. It is definitely not easy for the Gen Zs right now. And then of course now we are also at the start of this whole AI revolution, right? Companies, CEOs around the world are looking at how to implement AI into their existing workflow. They are looking at freezing hiring or cutting headcounts even, right? So they're not really hiring. So if you are a fresh grad right now in the market, I would imagine it is very tough. Yeah, I would imagine it's really tough. If you're a fresh grad, it would be tough because a lot of the jobs would be replaced by AI. Any job that requires kind of computing skills, analytical skills, that was once done by a human being would most likely be replaced by AI. And then of course, these younger Singaporeans, they see people who made it, right? Who made it like so-called made it like, achieve financial freedom, like success, have the title, have the status, and drive big cars. But then they also see the flip side of it, right? They see that these people are just exhausted, they don't have time for their family. They see the downside of that success as well. And sometimes I think people wonder, like, is it worth it? So for me, I just want to share my perspective. You may agree, you may not agree. We can agree to disagree. It's okay. Whatever you have, whatever thoughts you have, just feel free to leave them in the comment section below as well. But for me, I just want to share my journey and my thoughts lah. I used to be someone who is very driven. Right? In that sense, I'm someone who is very hungry. Yeah. So in my 20s, I think I was quite ambitious. I was quite hungry. I was working hard. I was like grinding. I went to the office early in the morning before the sun even rise. And then by the time I get home, it is already dark, so I don't see the sun at all. And of course, it's just a lot of like constant mental stress and thinking, and never resting and never having enough personal time and personal space, if you understand what I mean, right? Work does not end when you close the laptop, right? There's still, your mind is still at work pretty much. I worked hard. I was kind of rewarded in that sense. Monetarily, I had of course, increments, promotions, etc. And that ambition and that hunger paid off in that sense. And of course, I was somewhat disciplined with my financials. I saved part of the income, right? And managed to have different options. So now I am in Chiang Mai. I left the rat race, thankfully. But yeah, I think that ambition gave me that option to make this decision, make this move. But of course, that ambition, that hunger, I mean, it has its cost, right? There is, of course, trade-offs. When you're working hard and you focus on work, and work is a huge part of your identity. Work is kind of like, maybe 80, 90, 100% of your life. A lot of things kind of take a back seat as well, right? Health, for example, time with people you love, for example. So in the end, I realized that this whole constant striving, constant pushing, it actually does not create peace. It creates just a lot of stress, a lot of tension, and it just kind of throw you off whack, right? It doesn't balance. Your life is totally not balanced. Your life is probably a lot more work and a lot less life if you're constantly hungry and striving and like putting in the reps, putting in the effort. I mean, I'm not saying that effort doesn't matter. Effort definitely does matter. But I think, at the end, we're human. So there should be some sort of balance, and that's important. And also, I think there was like quite a lot of focus on hunger itself, like this whole hunger. I don't know. I mean, I used to be like a hiring manager as well. I was interviewing candidates. I honestly, just personally, I don't look for hunger in a candidate. I mean, that's not the most important criteria I look for when I interview candidates, right? I mean, at the end of the day, there is a job description, and I'm finding the candidate who can do the job and you know, be part of the team, be part of the company, and there is no like cultural, you know, mismatch or anything like that. And hunger is really quite low on my list, at least for me, where I look for candidates and I was looking to hire anybody. In fact, I don't want the person to be too hungry, because, you know, if the person is so hungry, every year the person will be asking me, you know, what does it take for me to be promoted? Then I have another headache as well. So I don't know, like, just my point of view, but I don't know if hunger is really, you know, what is going to make or break an interview with the hiring manager. In fact, I actually prefer candidates who knows how to work smart and not just work hard, right? Like, you need to be strategic and work smart and, you know, like, not burn yourself out, because then I have another problem as well as a hiring manager. So anyway, just my 2 cents worth on that. So ultimately, I think what is important is actually what kind of ambition, what kind of hunger is actually sustainable for you. Maybe younger Singaporeans are not hungry. Maybe they're not rejecting hard work. They're just questioning what all this hunger and what all this hard work is for, right? I think a lot the Gen Zs, the millennials, they're looking at different things. They're hungry. They're hungry for growth. They're hungry for freedom, flexibility, purpose, and things like that, right? So it might not be the same as in the past, where people are hungry for status and success in a very traditional sense, but I think that's how the society evolved, and I think it's good that people are pursuing, you know, kind of higher level pursuits nowadays. I don't think the answer is really to become completely unhungry and just thumping and do nothing. Life still requires effort, it still requires hard work, and it still requires you to be hungry, but hungry for the right things, things that you actually care about. But I also think a lot of Singaporeans are emotionally drained from all of this constant pushing and like constant rushing and, like, you know, this fast pace of life. So maybe the healthiest kind of hunger is one that you can sustain, that you can still enjoy while living it. That's all my sharing. Thanks for watching. Take care all.